Egypt. So with that in mind, let's take a look at chapter 42. Sorry?
Your voice changed.
My voice changed?
The mic went on.
Oh, very good. Okay. Well, should I repeat everything I just said? Okay. 42, when Jacob saw that there was food rations to be had in Egypt, he said to his sons, "Why do you keep looking at one another? Now I hear," he went on, "that there are rations to be had in Egypt. Go down and procure them for us, that we may live and not die." So 10 of Joseph's brothers went down to get the grain rations in Egypt, for Jacob didn't send Joseph's brother Benjamin with his brothers. A very portentous use of the word brothers here. So let's go back. So 10 of Joseph's brothers went down to get grain rations in Egypt, for Jacob did not send Joseph's brother Benjamin with his brothers, since he feared that he might meet with disaster. Thus the sons of Israel were among those who came to procure rations, for the famine extended to the land of Canaan. Now Joseph was vizier of the land. It was he who dispersed rations to all the people of the land. And Joseph's brothers came and bowed low to him. So those dreams are now being fulfilled, but as we'll see, not completely yet, with their faces to the ground. When Joseph saw his brothers, he recognized them, but he acted like a stranger toward them. The Hebrew uses the same verb, to recognize and not to be recognized. When it says here he recognized them, but he acted like a stranger, that verb, lenaker, is used then in the reflexive sense toward them, and he spoke harshly to them, and he asked them, "Where do you come from?" Now, this is the beginning of the look back. In other words, in chapters 40 and 41, we looked forward. Now we're looking back at the complexities of the relationship as the story tries to find a way to heal them. "Where do you come from?" he asked. And they said, "From the land of Canaan, to procure food." For though Joseph recognized his brothers, they did not recognize him. Recalling the dreams that he had dreamed about them, Joseph said to them, "You are spies. You have come to see the land in its nakedness." But they said, you see, this may conceal or barely conceal his animus toward his brothers, and he's now accusing them of being spies. But they said to him, "No, my lord, truly your servants have come to procure food. We're all of us sons of the same man. We are honest men. Your servants have never been spies." And he said to them, "No, you have come to see the land in its nakedness." And they replied, "We, your servants, were 12 brothers, sons of a certain man in the land of Canaan." You see how adroit the author is here to now, at this particular moment, take us back to that primal scene and to get the views of the different figures. Verse 13 again. And they replied, we, your servants, were 12 brothers, sons of a certain man in the land of Canaan. The youngest, however, is now with our father, and one is no more. Think of Joseph's reaction to that. Because for all they know, he is either dead or somewhere where they cannot recognize him. But Joseph said to them, "It is just as I have told you, you are spies. By this shall you be put to the test. Unless your youngest brother comes here by Pharaoh, you shall not depart from this place." Okay, so Joseph here, whether he's aware of it or not, is beginning to replicate the primal crime. Bring Benjamin here. Now he'll be out of his home place, and let's see what happens to him. Let one of you go and bring your brother while the rest of you remain confined, that your words may be put to the test whether there is truth in you. Else by Pharaoh you are nothing but spies. Okay, so the plan here is to send one of the brothers back and to detain the others so that they're being held here as a surety that they won't just go home and not come back. And he confined them in the guardhouse for 3 days. On the third day, Joseph said to them, "Do this and you shall live, for I am a God-fearing man. If you are honest men, let one of the brothers be held in your place of detention." So he changes the plan. Instead of detaining 11 or 10 and sending one back, now it's detaining one and sending the others back. If you are honest, verse 19 again, let one of you brothers be held in your place of detention, while the rest of you go and take home rations for your starving households. But you must bring me your youngest brother, that your words may be verified and that you may not die. And they did accordingly. They said to one another, "Alas, we are being punished on account of our brother, because we looked on in his anguish, yet paid no heed as he pleaded with us." Okay, so a look at what is going on inside of them, the feeling of remorse. Arthur?
So I never noticed this before, but the accusation of spy is interesting because the central pun is, I recognize and don't recognize. But what do spies do? They see things others don't.
That's it.
And Joseph
Right.
is accusing his brothers of having extra vision.
Right,
That's what they didn't have back then.
right. The whole play on recognize and not recognize.
And the other is the very first verse in the chapter you chose Jacob says, "Why are you looking at each other?" There's a hint. I never noticed it before. I hear a hint. We're starting here. Egypt's got plenty of food. Why aren't we going down there? And the hint is they're scared they might run into Joseph.
Oh, okay.
They're just hesitating.
They're certainly, the brothers are hesitating whether they're afraid to face. I don't think they know that Joseph is there, but they're certainly afraid of something. They're anxious. So we've gotten into their internal lives here, which is all about character, which is all about the transformations of character. Jim?
I just noticed something. After all the times we read this, which is more than a few,
Yes.
it says, "Do this, you shall live, for I am a God-fearing man."
Yes.
Now, didn't they assume he was an Egyptian? And their God was Pharaoh. He's telling them he's a Hebrew.
He's telling them what?
He's a Hebrew.
Well, why does that follow? The Egyptians had a pantheon of gods. The Pharaoh was like a god, but not God. So why is he telling them he's a Hebrew?
Because I'm a God-fearing man, a God-fearing man.
Okay.
It's the translation.
It's a subtle hint, I think.
All right. What verse are we on?
18.
8.
So, 18.
I'm a God-fearing man. Okay. Okay. All right. Oh, Elohim, you're saying. But Elohim is generic. Elohim stands for gods. It's Adonai that is singular and specific. Now, Elohim can stand for God. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. But it's also generic for gods.
What is the Hebrews?
Acherim, Elohim Acherim, other gods. The Hebrew says, V'hiyu et ha'Elohim ani yareh, because I am a God-fearing man. Okay? We've seen that, by the way, when he refuses Potiphar's wife, that he's a God-fearing man. And Joseph is known to the rabbinic culture as a tzaddik, a person who's not only righteous, but righteous also in the sense of being God-fearing. Okay, so let's go on. We're back here at 22. Let's go back to 21. They said to one another, "Alas, we are being punished on account of our brother, because we looked on his anguish, yet paid no heed as he pleaded with us. This is why this distress has come upon us." Then Reuben spoke up and said to them, "Did I not tell you, do no wrong to the boy? But you paid no heed. Now comes the reckoning for his blood." They didn't know that Joseph understood, for there was an interpreter between him and them. He turned away from them and he wept. And this is one of the several times that Joseph weeps, which is a sign of his strong emotional inner life, which the author is trying to convey to us. He turned away from them, verse 24, and wept, but he came back to them and spoke to them. And he took Simeon from among them and had him bound before their eyes. Then Joseph gave orders to fill their bags with grain, return each one's money to his sack, and give them provisions for the journey. And this was done for them, so they loaded their asses with the rations and departed from there. As one of them was opening his sack to give feed to his ass at the night encampment, he saw his money right there at the mouth of his bag, and he said to his brothers, my money has been returned. It is there in my bag." Their hearts sank, and trembling they turned to one another, saying, "What is this that God has done to us?" Okay, so notice that as they are moving through time forward, that's how we move through time, they are reflecting always on the past and what it must mean in terms of what's happening now. When they came to their father Jacob in the land of Canaan, they told him all that had befallen them, saying, "The man who was lord of the land spoke harshly to us and accused us of spying on the land. We said to him, 'We are honest men. We have never been spies. There were 12 of us brothers, sons by the same father, but one is no more. And the youngest is now with our father in the land of Canaan. But the man who is lord of the land said to us, By this I shall know that you are honest men. Leave one of your brothers with me and take something for your starving households and be off. And bring your younger brother, your youngest brother to me, that I may know that you are not spies, but honest men. I will then restore your brother to you, and you shall be free to move about in the land." As they were emptying their sacks, there in each one's sack was his money bag. When they and their father saw their money bags, they were dismayed. Their father Jacob said to them, "It's always me that you bereave. Joseph is no more, and Simeon is no more. And now you would say, take away Benjamin. These things always happen to me." Okay, so, Jacob is very self-involved. The brothers have had a traumatic experience, especially now that they see the money in their sacks. But what Jacob can think about is only himself. So the brothers, if they're going to reconcile, they're going to have to find a way to come to terms with who their father is. Then Reuben, verse 37, said to his father, "You may kill my 2 sons if I do not bring him back to you. Put him in my care, and I will return him to you." Okay, so Reuben's plan is quite catastrophic. Kill my sons. There must be a better way. But he said, "My son must not go down with you, for his brother is dead, and he alone is left. So what do the brothers feel at this moment? My son must not go down with you, for his brother is dead, and he alone is left. Okay? So this is the favoritism motif, once again, articulated, spoken to the other brothers. If he meets with disaster on the journey you are taking, you will send my white head down to Sheol in grief. Okay? So this is Jacob exposed to the reader. and to the brothers. So I'm going to skip 43, where they have to go down again and move to 44. Gary?
Sorry to interrupt.
No.
Text saying that the audio is not coming through.
Okay. The audio of the live stream is not coming through. Okay. So here we are again. A new system and not working perfectly. Thank you so much for saying that, Gary. I'm kidding, I'm teasing. All right, it's too bad. All right, apologies. Can't hear me say that. Chapter 44. Then, so the brothers have come back down. Then he instructed his house steward as follows: fill the men's bags with food as much as they can carry, and put each one's money in the mouth of his bag. Put my silver goblet in the mouth of the bag of the youngest one, together with his money for the rations. And he did as Joseph told him. With the first light of morning, the men were sent off with their pack animals. They had just left the city and had not gone far when Joseph said to his steward, "Up, go after the men. And when you overtake them, say to them, 'Why did you repay good with evil? It is the very one from which my master drinks and which he uses for divination. It is the wicked thing for you to do.' And he overtook them and spoke those words to them, and they said to him, 'Why does my Lord say such things? Far be it from your servants to do anything of the kind. Here we brought back to you from the land of Canaan the money that we found in the mouth of our bags. How then could we have stolen any silver or gold from your master's house? Whichever of your servants it is found with shall die. The rest of us, moreover, shall become slaves to my Lord." Okay? So we see what's happening here. It's Benjamin, and Benjamin is now singled out for special punishment if it's found in his bag. Verse 10. He replied, although what you are proposing is right, only the one with whom it is found shall be my slave. The rest of you shall go free. Now we can see that Joseph is contriving the same scene as the primal scene, that one of them is in danger and the rest of them shall go free, which is what happened when they come back in the first scene to their father and present Joseph's coat bloodied and say to him, "Do you recognize it?" That same word, lenaker. And they're free to continue to live out their lives. So the primal scene is being reconstructed. All right, verse 11. So each one hastened to lower his bag to the ground, and each one opened his bag. He searched, beginning with the oldest and ending up with the youngest. That's the dramatic way to do it, since the contriver here knows that it's only the one at the end of the line that's going to be revealed. And the goblet turned up in Benjamin's bag. At this they rent their clothes. Each reloaded his pack animal, and they returned to the city. When Judah and his brothers re-entered the house of Joseph, who was still there, they threw themselves on the ground before him. Joseph said to them, "What is this deed that you have done? Do you not know that a man like me practices divination?" And Judah replied, "What can we say to my Lord? How can we plead? How can we prove our innocence? God has uncovered the crime of your servants." I love that line, right? They carry the guilt of the crime of the initial crime forward. "Here we are then, slaves of my Lord, the rest of us, as much as he in whose possession the goblet was found." But he replied, "Far be it from me to act thus. Only he in whose possession the goblet was found shall be my slave. The rest of you go back in peace to your father," with dripping irony here. So what the author has contrived here is a replication precisely of the initial crime. The favored son, the youngest son, now being able to be sacrificed by the brothers, which they were willing to do the first time to save themselves, what will they do now? Okay? So it always reminds me of Maimonides' view of repentance. Plain repentance is to say, I'm sorry for the deed that I have done, and I promise not to do it again. But there is teshuvah shalema. There's a higher form of repentance, and that is not just that you're sorry for a deed and promise not to sin anymore, but when you are presented with exactly the same situation that you were before, what will you do? Now, and Maimonides quotes King Solomon, I can't remember from where, maybe the book of Proverbs, saying, if you're going to have complete repentance, make haste now because time is a-fleeing. If it's sexual immorality, you'd better try to find a way to replicate the scene because time is a-fleeing and your libido is not going to be as great and you're not going to be able to replicate the crime. Okay? Here is an opportunity for teshuvah shalema, precisely the same situation again, and what will they do? Okay, so now we have the beginning of the next Torah portion, Judah's great speech. Now, what we didn't look at is chapter 38, which is the story of Joseph going down and having relations with a Canaanite woman, and then we have Tamar, and Judah experiences the loss of two sons, and that's why he didn't give his third son to Tamar, because he thinks that she's responsible, but she conspires to have sex with him in order to raise up a son for her oldest son. But one of the things about chapter 38, which scholars of previous generations have thought was a kind of digression, is that it is a story in which Judah has firsthand experience of what it's like to be a father who has lost his children. So it's always seemed to me, and not just to me, that chapter 38, though it takes Judah in another direction before the story resumes in chapter 39, and what we have from the end of 37 to the beginning of 39 is what scholars call a resumptive repetition. It says somewhat the same thing as at the beginning of chapter 39 as what's said at the end of 37, as if the editor recognizes that we've interrupted the story with chapter 38, which in fact, I think a case can be made that it's not an interruption. Judah's speech here might seem to be strengthened in credibility on the assumption that he has experienced himself as a father, what his father has experienced. And so there is some quality of empathy here for the father because he has experienced the same thing. Then Judah went up to him and said, "Please, my lord, let your servant appeal to my lord. Do not be impatient with your servant, you who are the equal of Pharaoh. My lord asked his servants, 'Have you a father or another brother?' And we told my lord, 'We have an old father, and there is a child of his old age, the youngest. His full brother is dead, so that he alone is left of his mother, and his father dotes on him.' Then you said to your servant, 'Bring him down to me, that I may set eyes on him.' And we said to my lord, 'The boy cannot leave his father. If he were to leave him, his father would die.' But you said to your servants, 'Unless your youngest brother comes down with you, do not let me see your faces.' When we came back to your servant, my father, we reported my Lord's words to him. So you can see that Joseph is making it extremely hard on Judah, who continues to promote the needs of his father. Later, our father said, "Go back and procure food for us." And we answered, "We cannot go down. Only if our youngest brother is with us can we go down, for we may not show our faces to the man unless our youngest brother is with us. Your servant, my father, said to us, as you know, my wife bore me 2 sons, but one is gone from me." I mean, how cruel is that? My wife bore me. What about the sons that Leah bore to him and the concubines? "But one is gone from me." And I said, "Alas, he was torn by a beast, and I have not seen him since. If you take this one from me too, and he meets with disaster, you will send my white head down to Sheol in sorrow. Now if I come to your servant, my father, and the boy is not with us, since his own life is so bound up with his." I love the parenthetical nature of that phrase, as if Judah is describing the course of events and leading to what he wants to have happen. But he can't help himself from interrupting what he's saying in sympathy for his father. Let's go back. Verse 30. "Now if I come to your servant, my father, and the boy is not with us, since his own life is so bound up with his, when he sees that the boy is not with us, he will die, and your servants will send the white head of your servant, our father, down to Sheol in grief. Now your servant has pledged himself for the boy to my father, saying, if I do not bring him back to you, I shall stand guilty before my father forever. Therefore, please let your servant remain as a slave to my Lord instead of the boy, and let the boy go back with his brothers. For how can I go back to my father unless the boy is with me? Let me not be witness to the woe that would overtake my father." Okay? And in the initial scene, he had no problem confronting his father with the grief. Joseph could no longer control himself before all his attendants, and he cried out, "Have everyone withdraw from me." So there was no one else about when Joseph made himself known to his brothers. His sobs were so loud that the Egyptians could hear, and so the news reached Pharaoh's palace. Joseph said to his brothers, "I am Joseph. Is my father still well?" But his brothers could not answer him, so dumbfounded were they on account of him. So what I'd like to do now is to read a passage from Robert Alter's great book, The Art of Biblical Narrative, and Alter's understanding of what we've just read. Okay, so going to page 174. Okay, so Alter. In the light of all that we have seen about the story of Joseph and his brothers, it should be clear that this remarkable speech is a point-for-point undoing, morally and psychologically, of the brothers' earlier violation of fraternal and filial bonds. A basic perception about both human relations and relations between God and man is that love is unpredictable, arbitrary, and at times seemingly unjust. And Judah now comes to an acceptance of that fact with all its consequences. I want to read that sentence again. A basic biblical perception. This is in a chapter of Alter's book with the title Narration and Knowledge. How fiction, he doesn't use fiction, how storytelling creates knowledge for us about the human condition. And that's what Alter is suggesting is happening here. We are learning something about the human condition. So let me go back. a basic biblical perception about both human relations and relations between God and man is that love is unpredictable, arbitrary, at times perhaps seemingly unjust, and Judah now comes to an acceptance of that fact with all its consequences. His father, he states clearly to Joseph, has singled out Benjamin for a special love, as he singled out Rachel's other son before. It is a painful reality of favoritism with which Judah, in contrast to the earlier jealousy over Joseph, is here reconciled. I want to read that again without the parenthetical comment. It is a painful reality of favoritism with which Judah is here reconciled, out of filial duty and more out of filial love. His entire speech is motivated by the deepest empathy for his father, by a real understanding of what it means for the old man's very life to be bound up with that of the lad. I mean, think of it. He recognizes the favoritism. He recognizes that love is arbitrary often and often unjust. But nevertheless, he is able to have deep empathy for his father. I'm going to go back. His entire speech is motivated by the deepest empathy for his father, by a real understanding of what it means for the old man's very life to be bound up with that of the lad. He can even bring himself to quote sympathetically Jacob's typically extravagant statement that his wife bore him 2 sons, as though Leah were not also his wife and the other 10 were not also his sons. He repeats Jacob's favoritism in his own words. Michael?
Yeah, it's just striking to me that this is paradoxical, right? He's, as I understand it, he's saying, I know what it's like to be selfish, self-involved, and imperfect, and I'm sympathetic. In other words, he's in a way contradicting his own selfishness, right?
By acknowledging it?
Yeah. In other words, he's finding common ground with Jacob.
Yeah, you know.
In their imperfection and sort of lack of magnanimity in a way, right?
I love the statement, but I'm not sure I agree with it.
Okay.
I'll tell you what my view is here, just another view, is that Judah here is not really reflecting on himself, though chapter 38 may have been a background to the empathy he might feel. And if that's a part of your claim,
That is what I'm saying.
so, okay, well, that's a good point. The speech itself is only other-directed. He's only saying, here's what Jacob, our father, is feeling, and how we understand and accept that.
I guess what I'm saying is he has the capacity to be that empathetic because of what's
Okay,
revealed in chapter 3.
very good. I think there's a synthesis between our 2 points here. I think the speech itself only projects what Judah thinks Jacob is feeling and its justification. But if one wants to bring in Judah's maturation, in other words, Judah is reversing what he did at first. And how do we understand Judah's transformation, which is not a part of this speech? Then chapter 38 and his own experience becomes germane. Okay, very good, very good. So, in fact, There's an acceptance of Jacob, the father, and all of his frailties and cruelties, as well as an expression of the growth of the speaker. Good, I like that. I didn't at first. It's not that I didn't like it, I didn't agree with it, but I think you're making a good point here by bringing in that episode. Okay, so I'm going to go back a little bit. He, Judah, can even bring himself to quote sympathetically Jacob's typically extravagant statement that his wife bore him 2 sons, as though Leah were not also his wife and the other 10 were not also his sons. 22 years earlier, Judah engineered the selling of Joseph into slavery. Now he is prepared to offer himself as a slave so that the other son of Rachel can be set free. 22 years earlier, he stood with his brothers and silently watched when the bloodied tunic they had brought back to Jacob I have to go back here. 22 years earlier, he stood with his brothers and silently watched when the bloodied tunic they had brought back to Jacob sent their father into a fit of anguish. Now he is willing to do anything in order not to have to see his father suffer that way again. Judah then, as spokesman for the brothers, has admirably completed the painful process of learning to which Joseph and circumstances have made him submit. The only essential thing he still does not know is Joseph's identity. These revelations of a profound change in feeling shake Joseph. He can no longer go on with the cruel masquerade through which he had been testing his brothers. And so at last he bursts into tears openly in their presence, then says to them, "I am Joseph. Is my father alive?" Understandably, they are struck dumb with fear and astonishment, and so he has to ask them to step closer to him, and as he repeats his revelation. And then Alter has a really interesting digression put in parentheses. The obtuseness of conventional source criticism. So he's taking on the documentary hypothesis here, which inevitably has broken the story into parts that Jay wrote. Jay is the Yahwist, spelled with a J in German, who uses Adonai for God, and E, who uses Elohim, the so-called Elohist. And source criticism will take this story and identify different sentences and paragraphs from different sources. So here's Alter's take on this. The obtuseness of conventional source criticism is nowhere better illustrated than its attributing to a duplication of sources this brilliantly effective repetition, so obviously justified by the dramatic and psychological situation. "I am Joseph, your brother," he announces, now adding the relational term, "whom you sold into Egypt." It is the last hovering moment, perhaps unintended by Joseph, of ominous ambiguity in his address to them. For those words about their having sold him, coming from the all-powerful ruler of Egypt, might well strike terror in the hearts of the brothers. Joseph seems to perceive this, for he continues, "Now be not distressed or angry with yourselves for having sold me down here, for it was to save life that God sent me ahead of you." Okay? So, what are we to make of that claim, of that statement? For it was to save life that God sent me down ahead of you. Seems to me there are 2 ways at least to understand this. One, that in a way is an overall theme of this entire story. That history is really a function in some way of God's guiding hand. The key word here is guiding. How does history work? Through God's enabling, through human resources, to work out the problems of history and relationship as a manifestation of God's plan. So God is the ultimate cause here. You know, we have proximate causes, we have ultimate causes. Proximate causes are human actions, the devisings of the human heart. But they can all be seen, as the author sees them, as a part of God's plan. Or to put it paradoxically, God's plan involves human freedom to try to work out God's plan. It is paradoxical. So, in one sense, we could say that his statement is true. It's a deep insight. For it was to save life that God sent me ahead of you. Looking back on the actions of the brothers, throwing him in the pit and selling him, now in retrospect can be seen as part of a plan. But also, as another commentator has it, this can be seen as his therapeutic narrative. That is, he really doesn't believe that God has done this, but he's just saying that this is God's plan in order to not exonerate, but to salve the psychological wounds of the brothers. You're guilty for this, but look, it is God's plan. As if in this interpretation he doesn't fully believe it, but because the brothers have come so far toward him, he wants to move toward them. And he tells them a story. It's God's plan. As therapy, not as reflecting the truth, but as trying to alleviate their consciences so that the brothers together can move ahead. So let me propose a hypothesis here. The Genesis narratives, of which there are 5 or 6, of sibling rivalry, which just in quantitative terms alone makes it a primary theme of the book of Genesis. And if one wants to see the story of Joseph and his brothers, that at long last resolving the problem of sibling rivalry, so that, and here I move to the more communal idea, so that the people soon to be in Egypt as a beleaguered nation can, as a coherent community, move forward together. So the solving of the problem of sibling rivalry is crucial to the editor of these books in order to show us how disparate individuals with different experiences and feelings and rivalrousness can nevertheless work together. Okay? So if I'm right that this story is the Bible's, the author's resolution of the problem of sibling rivalry, in what does that solution consist? What is the solution here to sibling rivalry? What do you think? By the way, I'll go one step further. It's Judah who finds the way. And Joseph, of course, responds. If he didn't respond by weeping and said, the heck with you guys anyway. So Joseph has to be a part of it. But the stimulus, we might say the efficient cause, the cause that moves the story to its climax, is generated by Judah. And what is it, Scott?
I would say there's 2 things there. One is simply empathy, and the second one is Maimonides' idea of Shalom.
Okay.
It's that in action. I have
Okay.
a question, though. It's not a sidebar. It's actually, you started this. When you mentioned the author Jay,
Okay.
are there any scholars who view 38 and this speech as Deuteronomical, like an addition later when the 2 kingdoms split,
Oh,
to give Judah a better character and on the track.
Oh, well, now that's an interesting point, yeah. I'm not sure I'm not sure the issue here focuses on 38, but on the role of Judah throughout. I mean, Judah is really the hero of this narrative, isn't he, in terms of self-transformation. You may remember, where is it, in Genesis 17, where the author says, no, it's not Genesis, it's Deuteronomy. Kings shall come from you. That the notion of kingship goes all the way back to the beginnings of the Bible. So we might say that kingship is on the mind of at least the editor, if not to the authors themselves. And Judah, of course, is going to be the ancestor of King David. So we certainly could speculate that the author-editor who's doing, look, there is the so-called Ezra hypothesis that, the complicated matter. I've been reading some Spinoza on his view of the Bible. And Spinoza, like Hobbes actually in the Leviathan, claims that it's impossible for Moses to have written the 5 books of Moses for all kinds of reasons. Who might have done it? Ezra in the exile. And the Ezran hypothesis is that the authors from the beginning have kingship in mind and therefore contrive in terms of the various narratives to do it. So I think your point, with which I agree, that it's not accidental, that it's Judah. After all, Reuben's the first son, Judah's the 4th son. So in terms of priority, we might expect Reuben, who has an interesting idea. He doesn't want to kill Joseph just to bring him back to the father and so on. But Reuben is also the guy who says to his father, kill my sons, and so on. So Reuben is not exemplary. He's also a problem. He sleeps with the Jacob's concubines and is rebuked at the end of Genesis. So Judah is the guy. And why? Because one can read back that Judah is the ancestor of King David. Yeah. Lou?
This part has to happen because if it doesn't happen, then Joseph is a failure. He has to tell his brothers that that's me, because if he keeps grumbling that the prophecy of his dream hasn't been fulfilled, if they don't know that that's Joseph pushing them around and doing all this other stuff, then there's nothing there. His streets have fallen flat. So his megalomania, it says, at this point, it says, this is great. This is all the big plan, and those are big deals to be slaves and sold and all that. But I got the last laugh. I'm telling my brothers, that's me, and you're bowing down to me as I dread.
It does say, actually, in chapter 42, now Joseph was the vizier of the land. It was he who dispensed rations to all the people. And Joseph's brothers came and bowed low to him with their faces to the ground. So the prophecy is fulfilled, but
If they don't know about it, then it's not totally fulfilled. They have to know that they're bowing in front of Joseph, not just any old Pharaoh or representative of Pharaoh in Egypt.
not for the fulfillment of the dream. The dream is that you will bow down to me. It wasn't that they need to know it. But in point of fact, the meaning of the bowing down is transformed. I mean, after all, the first 2 pairs of dreams are completed when, in literal terms, they are fulfilled, right? When the butler and the baker come out of the prison and so on. But Joseph's dream is not fulfilled until we see that his dream is an instrument for something else.
But he tells his brothers what his dream is.
Okay, I mean, I do agree that Joseph maintains his potential brattiness to the end, but in fact, he sublimates it in terms of serving the family and finally serving his people.
Well, it's happened. Now we can go on to the next thing. You know, he got his thing, and now we can go on to something else. I don't know what the hell he's going to go on.
The brothers are not fully mollified, though, by this. Yes, Lynn?
Say that, what you read was such a deep context, and it was understandable for those who do have empathy, for those who grow into realizing, through the eyes of themselves, they can see others, and starting to, make factual, like this gentleman here is doing, it kind of crushes the beauty of what you've read. You know, it's not, everybody's got an angle. That there's such depth to all this that you read. I mean, I'm just so satisfied to learn about this.
Okay, I'm not sure what you mean by everybody has an angle. Doesn't,
No, I'm saying, I don't feel that Joseph did it because of this or that. Joseph did it because spontaneously he realized the brother Reuben has changed.
Judah.
Yeah, I can't go into detail of your question to me, but I'm just saying it's such a beautiful story, and you've done it so well to understand the emotions, the emotional finding each other as a family.
Yeah. It is a brilliantly told story.
I can't speak like you can speak.
Oh, God, no,
Sometimes
no.
I don't speak as well as I should, but I don't think you can add anything more to it except what you said, empathy.
Yeah. Don't you think, David?
Yeah, I also want to disagree with that interpretation. And I want to point out that it is not the case that the dreams have been fulfilled, because you're forgetting there were two dreams. And in the second dream, his father and his mother were also bowing down. That has not happened yet. So you would have to say that Joseph, in order to support this argument, you'd have to say that Joseph only paid attention to the first dream and not to the second dream. If he was paying attention to the dreams at all, he would know that they were not yet fulfilled.
And by that you mean both the father and the mother not yet.
That's right.
And the mother won't, of course. Mother can't. But the father, in some sense, will, if not taken literally. The father comes down and acknowledges Joseph's leadership and rejoins the family.
Right.
Is that tantamount to bowing down?
I don't know. All I'm saying is that I don't agree with the theory that Joseph was going, nah, 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 nah. See, I was right about my
yeah,
dreams
yeah.
because he hasn't yet fulfilled those dreams. I prefer the usual interpretation, which is that he has grown.
He has grown, and part of it, hold on, Lou, and part of it is, you're saying, that he also recognizes the incompleteness of the fulfillment.
Well, what I'm saying is that he doesn't see the fulfillment. I don't know whether he's thinking about the lack of fulfillment.
I see what you're saying.
But he certainly isn't thinking that it was fulfilled because it hasn't been yet.
I thought you were going to say a second ago that he recognizes that. I see. Now I know if I don't know what to say. Yeah, very good. Stalling. Let's see. Okay. I thought you were going to say that Joseph recognizes that the precise fulfillment of the dream is no longer necessary. That isn't what.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm only saying that the idea that Joseph has decided that the dreams have been fulfilled is not correct, because they haven't been fulfilled.
Yeah.
Whether he's thinking about that or not, I don't think he was thinking about it, but if he was, he wasn't going to come to the conclusion that they have been fulfilled.
You know, in my view, what Joseph sees is it's not the literal fulfillment of the bowing down, but that the bowing down is an instrument for the coming reconciliation. The bowing down is not exactly about him, but it's about his role as an instrument in helping to heal the family. Joseph, so in other words, we're beguiled into believing, this is my view of it, we're beguiled into believing that it's the literal fulfillment of the dreams which ends the problem, as has happened with the butler and the baker and the Pharaoh. So we're beguiled to look for literal fulfillment. We see it at the beginning of 42, but Joseph seems to recognize that this whole episode is an instrument for healing the family, and not so much to be vindicated in terms of the fulfillment of his dreams.
I would like to think that what Joseph sees is looking back at his own behavior when he was a child as being a part of what led to this moment.
You see any evidence for that in the text? That Joseph is looking back? I mean, look, the author here has taken some literary license and written a very beautiful story. I mean, we see the author's hand at work. So why not try to embellish the story that Joseph himself, but I don't see any evidence in the story itself that he has acknowledged his own aren't the tears, and the tears are a leitmotif of this story. He's crying all the time, as if to exhibit an inner life, a sense of feel. Joseph becomes more human through these expressions than actually in some literal way acknowledging, I was a brat at the beginning. I don't know. Gary?
What is interesting to me about this whole story is that, to my knowledge, this is the first exposition of sibling rivalry that is in the humanities. This is the first exposition of it. And of course, we all know that this is a story that goes on in the Bible.
Of sibling rivalry.
Sibling rivalry.
You-
It's a very, very, obviously, moving story.
Yeah.
And I think the second thing that has impressed me is how serious the problem was for Joseph. He went through hell, literally, and came out ahead. This was God's, presumably, this was God's plan. But what he went through for over 20 years was very serious.
It's interesting when you say it's evidently God's plan, because one could read this as a very secular story of the development of character through incident. One could think of it so the Joseph story is often thought of as having been influenced by Egyptian wisdom. And in a way, it is a wisdom story of coming to grips with reality and acknowledging it. It's Joseph's overlay of this is God's plan, which captures something deeper about the entire book of Genesis. I mean, if you lifted this story out, you might say, well, this is just a secular story and Joseph is saying, but the whole book of Genesis is God-saturated. But it's not God saturating human history via a deterministic view of reality. Human beings are seen here as acting through their own volition. Human beings are free here. We can't say they're not. It's the genius of the author. And Joseph didn't have to say, did he, at the end, you meant it for bad, but God meant it for good? Wow, what an act of forgiveness that is. I want to be sure that those who haven't spoken, Vivian.
So, maybe what Joseph is saying is, God put me here
Yeah.
so I could be as great as I was meant to be.
Yeah.
He says, says,
What-
God made, he says, tell my father, God made me a lord to all Egypt. And he says, and you'll tell my father all my glory in Egypt. I am here and I am great, and I want my father to know all that.
Where do you see that, by the way?
So
Where,
that's,
where are you reading?
45:8
45:8.
and
As far as not. He has made me a father to Pharaoh, lord of all his household, and so on. And where?
13.
And 13. And you must tell my father everything about my high station in Egypt and all that you have seen, and bring my father here with all speed. This, in a way, is Lou's point, that he continues his kind of braggadocio. Yeah, okay. Interesting observation. Diane?
So I want to circle back to the idea that we've had examples of sibling rivalry throughout the book of Genesis.
Yeah.
And this is the big one. And this is going to go about as far as resolution can go when the topic is sibling rivalry.
Okay.
And it seems as though the telling point of moving beyond just this continual repetition of the rivalry is to go beyond the proximal into the ultimate, to see a larger picture, to contextualize it within a larger framework. What I like about this, what I really like about the fact that the brothers leave this encounter and they think, I don't know, maybe when this could work out badly for us, I'm not sure I trust it, is that opportunity for there to always be and yet. Because as soon as you stay within either the proximal and you live your life in circles, or the ultimate, and you see only the larger picture, what you need is always the and yet. So
What's the yes part?
the and yes.
And yes.
And not yes, yet.
And yet. Oh, and yet.
So even though, so still, so here's
And
Joseph,
yet.
and he seems to see the bigger picture, and isn't that glorious? And he wants that to be told to his father. He wants it to be told to his father. Oh, so that's the little boy in you that wants your daddy to be proud of you. And what does he want his father to know? That at this point in history, in their lives, Egypt, the government now owns everything Egypt has ever produced. That was all sold to them for food. So it's not as though there was a magnanimous rationing of food. Sell everything you own. So yeah, he's a big guy. And that's wonderful. And everyone is saved and everyone's alive. And yet, he comes off very rich in the way that he maneuvered this. So that's what I like about the quasi-resolution of sibling rivalry, that it never quite lands on an answer. It's always juggling the different worlds we live in.
And one could add to your point with another point, that even though Joseph has forgiven the brothers and they weep and they hug, still in chapter 50, the brothers are still worried that Joseph is going to reap some revenge on them. That's another and yet. Okay, so they lived happily ever after is not a biblical motif. No, I really love that point. So that let me rephrase it and see if you accept it. So the author is extremely optimistic about the way history, though through lots of entanglements, is still going to be the revelation of God's plan. And yet, the author does not ignore some of the on-the-ground realities which will never change. You know, who is it? It's Jeremiah, isn't it? And Ezekiel too, that one day God will give you a new heart. You're suggesting in some way that's not true. We're always going to be expressions of human nature, even though good things and so on. I like that. Michael?
I want to go back to your original question of how the reconciliation happens.
Yes.
It seems to me that this is a case where everyone compromises, or concedes, or subordinates, whatever, you use the term subordination, or sublimation maybe. So Joseph possesses all this power, and yet he says, it was to save life that God sent me ahead. In effect, what he's saying is, I'm one of you, right? God, it was to save our family,
Okay.
right?
To which he returns.
Yes, and he's basically allowing himself to drop down into the family and not be this exalted.
Even though, as Vivian points out, he's still exalting himself.
Yeah, he's not abandoning
That's
that.
the and yet
He's not
part.
abandoning that, but he's choosing a more humble course by
Good.
doing that. He's conceding. And similarly, Judah is conceding that even though he is a second-class son, he is still part of the family, part of his father's family.
There you go.
And so that's how the reconciliation happens, is that they both basically drop the rock and say, we're all part of the same family. We can step out of our selfish positions and unify.
I like that. So Michael's point here is that the main motivating factor, we might say, is a willingness to concede, to compromise something, to step back a bit. I still have to ask, though, for the sake of what? Well, maybe the health of the family. Yeah.
Well, I guess my reaction to that is, it doesn't matter.
As long as you do it.
Yeah.
As long as you step back. Chad?
So, I wanted to say something about sibling rivalry. So obviously that's a huge part of the story in Canaan. But when they're in Egypt, Joseph, is testing them. Will they give up another brother,
Yes.
Benjamin, like they gave up Joseph?
Right.
And they don't. So the rivalry is superseded by responsibility and recognition that they have made a mistake. And after that, I mean, there'll be sibling rivalry in the future.
Sure.
But here, I think it's gone. Right at this moment.
And why? What's your understanding of why why does Judah make that move?
Well, I'm sure he feels responsible.
His responsibility.
Canaan, he didn't step forward.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to be very, I don't know, if you want to be non-religious about it, you would say that the person who wrote this story was somebody who wanted to elevate Judah. Because Judah becomes the major tribe in the south, and in the future, Ephraim will become the major tribe in the north.
And so Chad's point here is that one of the threads of this story is the elevation of Judah. Remember, though, when Samuel deposes Saul, and then he is told to go find a replacement, and he goes down and he gets Eli's, is it Eli? Sons to line up here. And this one, not this one, not this one. I guess they're not here. And it turns out to be the last son, David, about whom it is claimed that he is God's chosen. So that in this sense, the whole thread of Judah is also part of God's plan. It's not a separate secular story because David is the one that God cherishes. I'll tell you my hypothesis about this story. It's similar to Michael's. I think that it's an act of self-transcendence. It's the focus on the Father here or the head of the family. It's a focus on Jacob, who represents the coherence of the family. I'm still not saying this exactly the way I want to say it. They recognize something, maybe it's the compromise idea, but there's something about the role of the father in the family, the leader of the family, that, if you'll assume the analogy that I make between the family and the community in the book of Exodus, that there has to be, for the community to function healthfully, to be willing to look to something that transcends each of their interests, whether it's the leader or whether it's God. Because to pursue our own self-interest, which, as Diane points out, and Vivian too, is not going away. I mean, we see it here. But in order for that not to contaminate the possibility of a healthy community, one has to give up some of one's self-importance for the sake of a transcendent reality, to which, I mean, I think of Buber's notion of the wheel, that the spokes are individuals, but they're all pointing to one common center. And it strikes me that the Father is a stand-in for that common center to which everybody is expressing regard, fealty, love. Jim?
Well, the dynamics here are infinite. The 10 brothers are put in a negative situation from the get-go. And then we arrive at Judah worrying about his father, who's really caused the whole thing. The brothers felt so inferior that they wanted to kill one of them.
Mm-hmm.
And they end up inferior the whole time. But now Judah's worried about his father's feelings, who really caused the whole dissension in the first place.
Yeah.
So it's full circle, and the empathy's really nice, but the blame gets shifted. Joseph blamed for his father's actions, and that's the way the world is. I mean, when the guy goes in the post office and shoots everybody, inevitably it's not the one he was trying to kill. The blame thing is incredibly dynamic.
Yeah.
We all do it.
But this is,
We don't know what's really going on.
I think this is Diane's point. All that real stuff doesn't cease to be real. And yet, this is the other side of the and yet. You started with the top and said there's still stuff going on. I'm reversing it, and still. All this stuff is going on. And yet, I mean, here's what Alter says again. A basic biblical perception about both human relations and relations between God and man is that love is unpredictable, arbitrary, and at times perhaps seemingly unjust. So injustice, the way we're at each other's throats often, is an example of what Judah is willing to accept. And Alter goes on. And Judah now comes to an acceptance of that fact with all its consequences. So Judah is willing not to disregard all these things, but nevertheless, there is something more important if the family is going to be healed. Compromise, self-transcendence, not denial.
And possibly Judah's recognized that although Jacob has many flaws, he couldn't help it. He's human.
Whatever his analysis might be, I mean, and Diane's and yet again, Judah may very well still resent his father's prejudices and flaws, but nevertheless, he is willing to look beyond it. In other words, it's not a denial of imperfections in order to move on. It's an acceptance of them, but an insistence on moving on. Lynn?
Is this a correct fact that Joseph really set this up to see if his siblings changed?
Yeah.
By sending them back to get Benjamin, to see see if they would give away that brother. You know, and then when they wouldn't, and he saw that they were very protective of them, he saw the change. And what Judah was representing the change.
Yeah,
So that's when he revealed who he was,
yeah.
that there was a change. Is that correct?
Oh, I think it's absolutely on the mark. I think the yeah,
Another comment I
yeah.
want to make, and that's about what we're saying, that Joseph felt that he was so very important, and he wanted to make certain they knew that. But if you look at it, the whole picture of what Joseph was implying, that he was going to, in verse 6 and verse 5, the bigger picture is his dreams helped save Egypt from
Yeah,
famine.
yeah.
And isn't that the bigger picture of his deliverance and to make life better for Egypt, but also to bring his family into Egypt where there is food? That's what he was, isn't that what he's saying?
Yeah.
In 6, 7, and 8, that he was set for a greater purpose and his dreams helped deliver, to save the crop because famine would be here.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not a scholar, like many of them are, but in reading this, isn't Joseph looking at the broader purpose of him being here, which is to have his dreams and be able to make and help Pharaoh make these changes?
Yeah, right. No, I think you're absolutely right.
Well, they're talking about that, and that's what I remember.
Look, the dreams are only a way of setting Joseph up to be the vizier of the Pharaoh. It's through his own competence that he's able to develop a plan so that Joseph is many things here in this story. I mean, in a sense, this is a wisdom story about the workings of human motivation and human nature in the context of a theological overplay. I think your point, Lynn, though, your first point about replicating the story, I mean, the brilliance of the author, or we could say Joseph, is not just to set the brothers up, but to replicate long after the initial scene exactly the same situation where they act right. They have come to act. That's why he breaks down. He has seen human transformation here. The brother whom the father, whom they might still in a way despise in some sense, they recognize he loved. This is how families work. Yeah.
So you don't think that when Joseph is talking about himself and that, let's see, if you can, that God sent me ahead of you, the reason he did was to make life better for a lot of people with his dreams, and that now Jacob and his sons are going to benefit from the fact that they can have food to eat. Didn't they have a problem with that food to eat?
So you are diminishing the power of the claim that Joseph is still very self-serving, self-regarding, because his power has not just served himself, but served the purposes for which he was sent. So whether Joseph has a character transformation in that regard is a question. The fact that he's breaking down is certainly a reflection of the barriers that might keep him from reconciliation have been broken. He becomes vulnerable himself. Scott?
These last few comments all hedged around what Vivian brought up about the brattiness.
Yeah.
This is the evidence of his transformation. What distinguishes his first two dreams from all the other dreams, and the other dreams he acknowledges that, look, it's not me, it's God. It's doing it. The first two he doesn't. He just says, I had these dreams, and it's obvious that you're going to bow down to me, kind of thing. This is the point where he acknowledges, you know what, those were from God.
Yeah.
Maybe it's an epiphany at that moment in time.
Yeah.
And maybe he had thought this over years, but at this point, he's acknowledging that
Yeah, no, it's a good point. He might even have been further beguiled by the fact that when they come down initially, they do bow down to him, for which you can say, well, that's the end of this. That's the fulfillment. He doesn't realize until this point that his dreams have meant or led to something much more, David.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And I want to point out the proof text that I see to
Yes.
this story
Yes.
of Joseph's transformation, which is at the very, very end of the book.
Yes, 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 yes.
The brothers are still afraid
Yep.
once the father dies, that Joseph is going to have his revenge. Why doesn't he? Well, what it says is he consoles his brothers and speaks to their heart, which means, why does he have to do that? He's all powerful. He has the control over his brothers. He could use it. He doesn't. And in fact, he's trying to convince them that everything's going to be okay. And that, to me, is the proof that he really has transformed.
Very good. I like it. Let's read the end of the chapter 50 quickly. So, chapter 50, verse 15. This is after they come back from burying Jacob. By the way, that's not irrelevant itself. Jacob insists on being buried back in the ancestral burial plot. So this is a land of Israel idea, right? Verse 15 of chapter 50, when Joseph's brothers saw that their father was dead, they said, what if Joseph still bears a grudge against us and pays us back for all the wrong that we did him? So that's the and yet as well, isn't it? That even though he says to the brothers earlier, you meant it for bad, God meant it for good, and he cries and they weep and everything is now wonderful. No, it still looms here. When Joseph's brothers saw their father was dead, they said, what if Joseph still bears a grudge against us, pays us back for all the wrong that we did him? So they sent this message to Joseph. Before his death, your father left this instruction. So shall you say to Joseph, forgive, I urge you, the offense and guilt of your brothers who treated you so harshly. By the way, it's not clear that Jacob ever knows the real story. So that the brothers now, in their still desperate state, are making up a story and putting it in Jacob's mouth in order to try to wrest even concessions from Joseph. So this also is still playing with this dynamic. So back to verse 16. So they sent this message to Joseph. Before his death, your father left this instruction. So shall you say to Joseph, forgive, I urge you, the offense and guilt of your brothers who treated you so harshly. Therefore, please forgive the offense of the servants of the God of your father. And Joseph was in tears as they spoke to him. Why is he crying here? Does he feel their desperation? Does he sense that the father never could have said this? They're making this up, which reflects their own sense of vulnerability. Or maybe it's that the brothers are still trying to solidify the reconciliation about which they still feel a little bit of fragileness. I don't know what it is. His brothers went to him themselves, flogged themselves before him and said, we are prepared to be your slaves. But Joseph said to them, have no fear. Am I a substitute for God? Besides, although you intended me harm, God intended it for good, so as to bring about the present result, the survival of many people. In other words, thank you so much for doing this to me, because even though you may have had ill intent, look at how wonderful the results have been for Egypt, for our family, and so on. As if to say to them, forget about it. And so fear not, I will sustain you and your children. Thus he reassured them, speaking kindly to them. So as David points out, was it you, David, who pointed this out? There is still some residue here of the negative feelings. So Joseph and his father's household remained in Egypt. Joseph lived 110 years. Just as an aside, the numbers, the ages is a very exciting idea in its own sense. Moses lives to 120. The hero on either side of Moses, Joseph and Joshua, each live 110. So 110, 110, 120. Nice little triangle. Joseph lived, verse 23, to see children of the third generation of Ephraim. The children of Machir, the son of Manasseh, were likewise born upon Joseph's knees. At length Joseph said to his brothers, I'm about to die. God will surely take notice of you and bring you up from this land to the land that he promised on oath to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob. That circling back to the main arc of this story. So Joseph made the sons of Israel swear, saying, when God has taken notice of you, you shall carry up my bones from here. Joseph died at the age of 110. He was embalmed in place in a coffin in Egypt. Just to trace what happens to Joseph's bones, let's look ahead a little bit. Let's look to Exodus chapter 13, the beginning of Bashalach 13. I want to look at verse 18, 13, 18 of Exodus. So God led the people round about. This is the beginning of the Exodus from Egypt, by way of the wilderness at the Sea of Reeds. Now the Israelites went up armed out of the land of Egypt, and Moses took with him the bones of Joseph, who had exacted an oath from the children of Israel, saying, and now Moses quotes what Joseph said almost verbatim. God will sure to take notice of you, then you shall carry up my bones from here with you. Now this is easily 500 years later. And the author is suggesting that the memory of Joseph's hope that you will take my bones up have been remembered, and Moses is about ready to take them up. Just to complete the story, let's go to the end of the book of Joshua. Joshua chapter 24. Chapter 24, verse 32. The bones of Joseph, which the Israelites had brought up from Egypt, were buried at Shechem in the piece of ground which Jacob had bought for 100 kesitas from the children of Hamor, Shechem's father, and which had become a heritage of the Josephites. So that Joseph wants to be buried in the land of Israel. Moses remembers the promise or the hope, carries the bones up, and at long last, after the conquest, his bones are buried at Shechem. I think it's a very touching thread that the author doesn't forget, the editor doesn't forget the promise that Joseph exacted of the people and is finally brought home to be buried there. Okay, so we are now up to date on the Parshiot. Doris?
I have a last word about Judah.
Good.
Why he does what he does.
Good.
I think it's because he understands justice. If you understand justice as God's order for the world, God's plan for the world, at the end, when he finishes his speech, in order for the order to be restored, he has to give of himself so that the son Benjamin returns. It's a win-win situation. You need somebody, he doesn't know who Joseph is yet. You want somebody here, it should be indifferent to you, I'll stay, but let the boy go. And before that, in 43, when the issue is, should we go back with the boy or not, with Benjamin or not?
Back to
Reuben
Joseph.
says, you know, kill my children, that doesn't work. But in 43:8, Judah said to Israel, send the boy in my care, because once it's in my care, I'll take responsibility. In order to have justice in the world, somebody has to take responsibility for order. And he does that. And prior to that, so it's a restoration. He understands what has to be done. It involves repentance. It involves knowing the truth. And it involves a sense of win-win. Prior to that, though, in 38, that's the Tamar story. So eventually Tamar tricks
Judah.
Judah into having intercourse. And it's a little trick about leaving behind something that then identifies that when she gets pregnant, it's Judah who is the
Right.
father.
Right.
What's really interesting is, and then Judah impetuously says, she must be killed, she must be burned to death. Outrageous. When she produces the evidence and says, well, the person who made me pregnant, this is who it is. This is the evidence. These are the things he left behind. So interesting that Judah recognized them, it says in verse 26. And he says, she is more right than I, inasmuch as I didn't give her my son as I was supposed to.
Right.
And he was not intimate with her again.
Yeah.
That's what you quoted from Maimonides about repentance. I'll not do this thing again. And then she gives birth to Perez, who is the direct line for the king.
Yeah. And the ancestor of Ruth.
And the ancestor. Well, Ruth, in fact.
Is it-
would
is
have
it
done
Peretz?
what
Is there-
Tamar does, tricks Boaz. But anyway, I think, no, I agree that Judah is the hero of the story. And he's the hero because he understands justice. And he gets it here, 38. He doesn't find excuses. He just says, yeah, you know what? She's right, I'm wrong, and I will not do this thing again. And later on with his father, listen, if we don't send the son, we're all gonna die. For the right order of the world, we should send the son. And the father agrees instantaneously and says, you're right. And in the end, Joseph can't bear it anymore. And he says, you know, you're right. You're absolutely right. But let's not send the son back. Let's bring the father here.
Right. And you, go ahead.
That's God, that's what God wants.
That's your idea of order, that the family now comes back together again as a family and not separated? Is that the that's the right order, yeah. And also Judah's claim that she is righteous. He's also recognizing the justice of the situation. Okay, very good. Yeah. Right. Seems to me that in Plato's Republic, one definition of justice in the city is that each person play his or her proper role. And if everybody is doing what they ought to be doing, then that's justice in the city. So that's, again, another example of the right order. Okay, seeing no hands. Oops, Lou.
Yeah, we're finishing Genesis. I think we should remember that I think Jacob is the real hero of Genesis because no matter what the origin of his kids were, whether they came from legitimate marriages or concubines, they're all accepted under the tent.
Yeah.
You know, and we can see that in terms of Reuben's sons are being left with Jacob while he goes back to Egypt, and you know, as opposed to his father and Jacob's father and grandfather, they're all my kids. Some of them are more favored than others, but they're still my kids. You know, my tent is big enough to include everyone.
Yeah.
And I think that, you know, that's a big deal. Maybe the biggest deal in the whole Bible.
Good golly. Well, we talked about Jacob, I mean, David's point several weeks ago about Jacob and Israel. You know, Jacob is Israel and therefore central as Israel, but he's also a very problematic individual. I mean, in a way, Jacob is Jacob is not, how do I want to say this? It's not his actions that reconcile the family. Now, he's a big problem at the beginning, but it's his children who really reconcile the dissident groups within the family. Jacob comes back, and he wants to be buried in the land of Israel. This is a big deal. Yeah. By the way, we haven't done this before, but when we finish a book, traditionally, we say chazak. So it's chazak, chazak, which means be strong, v'nit chazek, and let us strengthen one another in the reflexive tense. Chazak, chazak, v'nit chazek. Let's do it. Chazak, chazak, v'nit chazek. Let us be strong, and let us strengthen one another. And next week we'll continue to strengthen each other. Book of Exodus. Okay, Shabbat Shalom.
Great job. I just want to offer an alternative to your sermon last night.
Oh, good, yes.
Not as
Thank you.
as a disagreement, but as an alternative.
Good.
Which is that what I was reflecting on it, and if you look at that story from the perspective of Moses, there is help all around. And in my life, I have found it really important to recognize that everything is not on my shoulders.
Okay, well, that's a good point.
That I have around me all kinds of people who are capable of mitzvot, I guess, and none of us is alone. However much we may feel like that, I mean, if you think about it, the situation in which he was put, right? You could, if he was cognizant enough at that age to recognize, holy cow, I'm a dipshit, right? But actually he wasn't. He had all his help all around.
So
Anyway.
my emphasis last night was on the actions of particular individuals.
Right.
You're pointing to another kind of benefit, and that is the context in which our actions are performed. And that Moses had some protection of his own people. just as we feel that ourselves. So if the issue is facing the tyranny, these individuals do it, but you're pointing to another factor altogether. I like it. Yeah. Good.
So not that there were any lulls or down moments, but I leafed through the Haftarah.
Okay.
It's very much in contrast to this story. It's where David's dying, and he says, "Hey."
It's where David is dying?
Yeah, it's first Kings
1 and
chapter
2, yeah.
And he says, "Hey, watch out for this guy, this Shammai, the Benjaminite, because he insulted me a long time ago.
That's
and
interesting.
you're gonna do is send him down to Sheol, send
Yeah.
his white head down,
Yeah.
or gray head down to Sheol."
Yeah.
Back in Samuel 2, 16 and 19, he says, that's when he first insults him, throws rocks at him and heckles him. Then the second time he says, "Look, don't bother me, it's my coronation, don't worry about it, I forgive you."
It doesn't. I see what you're saying, yeah.
And it's like the exact opposite story. It's amazing.
Oh, yeah, okay, so it's
It's
not a...
amazing that they joined those two together. Why? Can you think of a reason why?
Well, the death of Joseph, the death of David. So these are stories of the end of the lives of two great figures. One of the problems with choosing Haftorah, and you put your finger on one of the issues, is that while you're doing a parallel, you're also creating some internal problems.
Honestly, it just popped into my head. This might support my idea that this was an attempt. Oh, wait, it's exactly. That's where David ended up, right? In the south, in Judah.
Yes?
I thought maybe it was like, they built Judah up in this story.
Oh, you're talking about Judah as a place?
Well, as a place, but it was Judah and
The tribe.
The tribe, yeah. His tribe and Benjamin's tribe that went there, right? It doesn't make sense. I thought maybe it was to discredit David. Why would they do that then? So that discredits my theory that this was an attempt.
Right. No, it doesn't put David in a very good light. I think it's probably just the parallel deaths, the end of two stories. But the contrast, I might say, look, I mean, if it's you and I deciding what the Haftorah is, and I said to you, hey, there's a parallel here between the death of Joseph and the death of David. Let's do that as the Haftorah. And you would say to me, don't you see what we're opening up here? A big rebuke of David.
I don't know her name. But
Diane.
Diane.
Yeah.
But it emphasizes her that she started here and took it down to, well, this still exists. Maybe that was the point.
To see David as a human being who, for all his greatness, is still pretty bare.
Still exhibits some of the worst of what we're capable of.
You know, the problem with that, I mean, I love it as an idea, but it's the rabbis who create the Haftorahs.
Yeah.
And the rabbis, I think, see David as the ancestor of the Messiah. So their view, I would think, would be only to elevate. So, again, that raises the question, then why did what were they thinking? It's an interesting question. I have a book which compares Torah portions and Haftorahs. Yeah, if I can remember, I'll bring it in, actually. And I haven't.
Is it in the library?
No, it could be actually in my office. You want to come back? No, it's not a problem at all. Sure.
Oh, that'd be great. Yeah, thank you. Do you have time? I mean, I can do it another time.
No. Let's do it.
An old student, Joan, just read me something that she writes in her Tanakh.
Yes.
When she has her Torah studies. And she said at one time, you said, what I said, that Joseph is talking about how being left and then be a prisoner or slave to Egypt, he was led to greater good, and the greater good was that he saved them from famine, and he was able to take his family back to Egypt.
Save the family.
And that saved the family, because they were looking enough to be able to eat. Okay. So she says, you talked about that
did.
2 or 3 years ago.
Wow.
And so she was surprised that when I said it, you didn't recognize
Well,
So
there's a lovely play by Samuel Beckett called Krapp's Last Tape. And it's a story of this guy, Krapp, K-R-A-P-P, listening to a tape that he had made many years ago
Yeah.
and not recognizing anything.
Oh, that's not good. I mean,
Well,
you know,
but it's inevitable.
Oh, right. Oh, I agree. No, we're not saying, challenging you that, you know, that you're, we're just saying that it was an
No.
important thing. And everybody was judging Joseph for still trying to be
Yeah.
better than his brothers.
Yeah.
And that's not what Joseph was saying. He was saying, I'm here, I've done good, and now my family can have the good too. Simple as that.
No, that's a good point. Though Vivian, I think, was making, in a way, illustrating Diane's point, that yes, there's some great things here, but nevertheless, our baser impulses are never really fully put aside. And so she was illustrating that Diane idea by saying, and Joseph is still kind of a bragger. You don't see that. You
No.
see that he's just saying, here's
He's
what I've
saying
been
what it
able
is.
to do.
Be sure things are good now. You come and let me give the good back to you.
I love it.
Yeah, and what was? Shoot, my brain is probably already used as much as it can be this hour. What did you just say about what she first said about Joseph? Oh,
That he was
no,
bragging. Yeah.
right. But in that book, it was
Yeah.
saying
Yes.
that. Hold on one second. I'm going to grab it. I'm 81. Hold on.
I don't have to be home till 6 o'clock.
No, but oh shit, I forgot.
Join the crowd, Larry.
No, that Judah realized that love is not all equal. That you can be loved, but maybe not equally, and that's okay. That's just the way life is, and that's how he came to terms with his father, and he came to terms with his father when he held his own children. That's the empathy it was saying. You know, I was meant to be a nurse.
And you were.
I know.
Was that right? Were you on our end?
Pardon?
Were you on our end?
Critical care RN.
Yeah. My mother was at our end.
Ah, it's a great profession if you're into
And my
it.
daughter's an RN.
That's right. I forgot about that.
She turned
Yeah.
all of us kids into hypochondriacs. We never had a cold. It was always pneumonia. Never had a sore throat.
Oh, I want that one. I love that one.
That's funny. Every little sniffle
Every one
is
of us
pneumonia.
What I just did this morning, and I've done it times in your tour session, reminds me when I was in nursing school, and we took a class called Interpersonal Relations, and we would have to set up, this is psychology, sociology, and putting it together, and how to understand a patient, or understand the motives, or what they're really saying, and I always had my hand up knowing it. So it's just kind of like the way my brain works, in a more sensitive, humanistic way. Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah, so I'm just beginning to understand myself now.
You
I
know,
hope to do this someday.
you know the motto over the door of the temple at Delphi, where you had the Delphic oracle, know thyself.
Now, I have hearing aids and my phone's ringing in it, so and I'm gonna go get
I don't hear it.
But
Know thyself, which
we
is
must get together for coffee.
I'd love it.
We keep saying it for like 2 years, and I think that's how long.
And I
it's
haven't
been.
had coffee for 2 years.
Well, I meant together.
All right, text me or something.
I
and
sure will.
Yeah,
I sure will.
we'll
do.
get it on our calendars.
This class was amazing.
This whole series.
Yeah. You like that? I don't. I like to hear music, and I like to see people when they, not that some people have a different interpretation of it, because how can they have a better interpretation of it when you're so well read? When you're reading all these wonderful people, when you read that was this author's interpretation. How can they think any better than that? teach us, it just smells me. I mean, and I can't hear what I hear, but they just sometimes go on an abstract or it's their own line. So it's just like I'm here to get information, good information, and people should make comments. They don't make up theories. They will, that's